On today's episode of the Back Burner Podcast, we're talking about the top 10 games that force you to feel. Greetings, programs. Welcome to the Back Burner Podcast. I'm Zach W. Lorton, designer of Back Burner Games, and it's my privilege to be with you today. Today, we are talking about the top 10 games that force you to feel. Now, this is my personal top 10 list. If your list differs from that, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the games on this list or any of the games that you think should be on a top 10 list like this. The last time I came to you, my buddy Jason Kelly, Manifested Mercy. By the way, check them out at manifestedmercy.com. Jason and I told you about the top 10 games that force you to think. To take your mind off of what's going on in the world around you, take the mind off your personal problems and think. Engage in something else that is not bringing you down. Today, we're talking about the top 10 games that make you feel all the feels. Good, bad, something in between. I think board gaming is one of those really great hobbies that, like video gaming, can bring your adrenaline up in many different ways. Board gaming has the ability to take those emotions and kind of spread them out over the course of whatever the game is. And I've come up with 10 games that make me feel all kinds of emotions, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows and the most frustration in the world. So let's dive into this list, shall we?
Number 10.
At number 10 is a game that inspires a lot of laughter with me and the other people that I play it with. It's a party game that's not exactly a party game. It's more like a meta game about gaming. This is called Gameception. Gameception was a Kickstarter game, a simple card game that you use in party form, and it's really a game that you play over the course of several games at a game night or during a game convention. The premise is simple. It's got a bunch of different cards written on there, and each card has an item on it that a player could do at the table. Something simple like burping or singing a song or checking the rule book, doing something specifically in a game, using some sort of mechanic. All sorts of things written on these cards. And of course, in true gamer style party fashion, it's got a bunch of blank cards that you can write your own rules on. The idea is that every player starts the night with 2 cards. Whenever somebody does one of the things written on the 2 cards that they've got in their hand, they claim it, they place it face up, and they score it, and then they go get another card and refill their hand. And by the end of the night, whoever has the most points wins. It's more an activity than it is a full-on game, but sometimes the process of getting somebody to score a point without them realizing that they're scoring a point for you is really just hilarious the way it works out. And other times, the process of trying to get somebody, very obviously trying to get somebody to do something so that you can score a point, a lot of people can smell that from a mile away. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it quite a bit. We break it out every time that we host a game night at my church, and it's a ton of fun. Gameception at my number 10.
Number 9.
At number 9 is a game that makes me feel smart, and that is Paperback from Fowers Games. If you've never played this game, it's a lovely, lovely alternative to Scrabble and other crossword games. Now, my wife and I play Scrabble quite a bit, or at least we used to play Scrabble quite a bit. That's the one game that she actually enjoyed playing with me because she knows she actually has a chance to beat me, and she does. Soundly. Paperback is like Scrabble, but it takes away the crossword and replaces it with a deck builder. You're starting with a deck of letters, and you start by making words. And in true penny press fashion, this is based off the old school newspaper editorial and columnist trope of paying people a certain number of cents per word. The idea is to get as many victory points as you possibly can. By the time somebody races up to the end of the game, everybody counts up the victory points that they've gotten. Whoever's got the most is the winner. And part of the fun in this is just coming up with cool word combinations that you can make. And of course, each letter that you buy, most of them have higher cent values that allow you to buy more cards, and some of them have different activities that you can use. You can attack other players, you can defend yourself from another player, get bonus cents just by making certain words by using a certain card. And then there are also common letters that everybody at the table can use in addition to what they have in their hand. This is a really neat mechanic. There's an expansion of this called Paperback Abridged, which I have not tried yet. And then there's also another version of this game called Hardback, which is basically the exact same premise, except it's a little bit different. And from what I've heard, it's a little bit easier. I prefer Paperback because it's one of the first games that I purchased from Fowers Games, and I really enjoy this game. The simplicity of it is great, and it makes me feel smart. It makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. Whereas in a game like Scrabble, I'm confined to not only the letters that I have in front of me, but also the letters that are already out there on the board, because I have to use something that's on the board and I have to fit within this crossword. And that can be extremely challenging. That can cause some amazing analysis paralysis. In this game, there's hardly any AP. From one turn to the next turn, you're looking at, the cards that you have in your hand, and like, what can I make out of this? What can I make out of this? You're not having to rely on what anybody else has put down. The turns go really fast, what I've found, especially with people who are already familiar with deck builders. So I highly recommend this one. My number 9, Paperback from Fowers Games.
Number 8.
At number 8 is one that I purchased secondhand on a whim from a friend of mine. I always love going to amusement parks. Six Flags St. Louis is not too far from where I live. And it's a great time. If you ever go to an amusement park and just get on the roller coasters and ride around and eat overpriced food, and the smell of the place just really brings about this sense of, we're having fun. We're not at home. We're doing something that's fun. This entire place is geared towards fun. And I really enjoy building my own theme park in Steam Park. Steam Park is just a fun game. It's just a fun little game. You're making a robot-centric theme park where you're trying to attract robots. There is the business side of things because you have robot poop to clean up, and then you have also booths that you need to be able to put up and erect, and some of these booths will help you, give you bonuses on some of your dice rolls, and they'll help you clean up more poop, and they'll help you attract more robots. But you get to build these little rides, you get to build these roller coasters and put them all over your space, and it's got a little bag building mechanic in it too. I have never had a game of Steam Park that did not go well. I've never had a game of Steam Park where people were just like, this is boring, this is stupid. No, everybody enjoys this, because if anybody has ever been to a theme park, you know how much fun it can be, as long as it's not like, 105 degrees and it's the, most crowded day on earth. But man, playing this game just really kind of brings about that nostalgia for me. Plus, the rulebook is one of the best rulebooks I've ever read. It is actually a pleasure to read through to learn how to play the game. So props to that. Steam Park, my number 8.
Number 7.
At number 7 is a game that causes me to feel the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat without the sports, and that's Champions of Midgard. This is a great worker placement game from Gray Fox Games. You're Vikings, and you're going all over Midgard, and you're trying to help the people clean up what's going on. You're picking up soldiers, you're picking up food, you're picking up wood, you're buying a boat so that you can travel across the waters and fight some monsters, you're fighting trolls, you're fighting draugrs. And the cool thing about this is that it's got a dice rolling mechanic to it. Now, a lot of people don't really like dice because of the amount of luck and chance that's associated with rolling dice, but it's just kind of fun to do in this particular game. And when you do well and you defeat a monster or a draugr or a troll, you feel victorious. You feel like you've actually vanquished something with zero problems. And when you get defeated, it's so disheartening. It hurts. It's a heartbreak. And then there's also the fun of, messing with your neighbors, and when you defeat the troll, you get to pass blame on to somebody else, and oh no, why am I being blamed? I've not played this game with any of the expansions, which from what I understand, both the expansions, especially the Valhalla expansion, really allow this game to be more than just, oh, you rolled bad, you lose. You can mitigate the bad dice rolls using the Valhalla expansion. Not played it that way, but one of my gaming buddies has the entire thing with the big giant neoprene playmat, and one of these days I'm gonna rope him into a game where he can soundly beat me as hard as he possibly can. Champions of Midgard, my number 7.
Number 6.
At number 6, every time I've played this game, I have laughed hard. I have felt betrayed. I have felt victorious. I have felt like I've gotten one over on somebody else. All these emotions happen in this particular game, and I've been told you got to play this game with the right group. It doesn't always work with every single group, but if you've got a bunch of people who are okay with Ameritrash style games, they're not straight Euro gamers, and they love negotiation, Cosmic Encounter is one that you cannot go wrong with. There's a reason this game has been around for as long as it has. And there's also a reason why for so many years, Tom Vasel of the Dice Tower had this as his number 1 game of all time. And I played it for the first time a few years ago at Geekway to the West, and oh my gosh, what a fantastic ride this game is. Every game takes about an hour to 2 hours, depending on the number of people that you have playing. You have alien races, and each alien race has its own unique power, and it's unique only to that one. And there are so many alien races in the game, you could play this game with the same 5 people every night throughout the year and not play the same game twice. Every single night. You're gonna have different powers, you're gonna have different abilities, and people are gonna do different things because there's so much replayability in this game. But it's gonna mess with your head. It's gonna make you question your loyalty to your friends. Forget about diplomacy. Cosmic Encounter, it's gonna make you angry and happy and sad and crazy all at the same time. My number 6.
Number 5.
I've got a couple games on this list that induce a lot of tension, and this is the first of them. You've seen this on one of my lists before because it's one that I really enjoy because it's also hitched to an IP, and that's Battlestar Galactica, the board game. This game has long been out of print, and it's unfortunate that they're not reprinting it right now, but Fantasy Flight Games did a fantastic job putting this game together. I've also heard a lot of people who love this game say they play it with every single expansion every time that they can. I don't know. I think the base game in and of itself is absolutely fine. If you want to throw more players into the mix and add some expansions, go ahead. But I think at the base game, you've got a fantastic game where the question of who is a Cylon is always running in people's minds. There's the tension, if you're not a Cylon, of trying to figure out who might be and trying to flesh those people out because they will be at some point actively fighting against you. If you are a Cylon, there's the tension of finding out what's the best time for me to reveal myself and to put my sinister plan into motion. Battlestar Galactica is a fantastic game that takes 2 to 3 hours at the table. It is what I could refer to as an experience game. There's a train behind me. It's what I refer to as an experience game, a game that takes up an entire evening and will give you an experience at the table. You might like it, you might not, but either way, there's going to be tension in the play of this game. There's so much more I could say about it, but I've already said it in one of my other podcasts, so I will just let you know, Battlestar Galactica, if you ever get an opportunity to play it, or if you can get your hands on a copy, definitely do so. My number 5.
Number 4.
At number 4, this is a game that I don't think a whole lot of people know about, which is really kind of a shame. It is the type of game I think anybody and everybody would love to play. They'd love to give it a shot. Everybody's played mini golf. Everybody has gone to some mini golf course and gotten frustrated by the fact that they can't put a little ball in a hole using a messed up looking stick. Mini golf is one of those games that I really enjoy, even though I'm terrible at it. Bellwether Games, makers of Freshwater Fly, put mini golf on Mars. This is called Mars Open Tabletop Golf. This is a fantastic dexterity game where you're flicking little paper balls and you're trying to sink them into a hole. This is a hard game, but it's fun when you have to work around obstacles and shoot through certain things or maybe bounce something off of another item. There's even a couple of holes where you put the hole onto a chair next to the table. So you're actually going from the table to the chair, like you're kind of shooting onto a green in the middle of an island in the middle of a water hazard. I actually hosted this game as a tournament at Geekway to the West in 2019, had a blast with it, and you should have heard the cheers coming from the people when somebody sunk a putt, even if it was their opponent that sunk one. I might have to put a not safe for work disclaimer on this. The premise of mini golf is the simplest thing in the world, and this game really does a great job of emulating that. It gives you all sorts of different maps, the different layouts of places that you can put it, and it also included a lot of different layouts that were suggested by people who backed the game on Kickstarter. My recommendation, check out Bellwether Games and buy yourself a copy of Mars Open Tabletop Golf. It gives you this great feeling of achievement and fun. It's like you're hanging out with friends. Mars Open Tabletop Golf, my number 4.
Number 3.
The second of 2 games on this list that I feel bring about a high sense of tension. It's one of my absolute favorites. I fell in love with it when I saw the episode on Tabletop, Will Wheaton's Tabletop podcast, where this game got played, and I'm just like, I gotta give this game a shot. Dead of Winter is my number 3. Why is Dead of Winter my number 3? Why is it not in the top 2? Well, this game does not induce as much tension if you're not playing with a full contingent of 5 people, or even with 4 people. I've played this game solo, and it brings about a lot of tension. I've played this game with 5, and it brings about a lot of tension. And I've played this game with 3, and it's just more like 3 is where we have to do this. We really don't have a choice. You've got so few players and so few options of things to do that you don't have a whole lot of time. At 5 players, this game is magical. It makes you really feel about the characters in the game. And that's the other thing about this game, is that it's coupled with the Crossroads mechanism. Crossroads mechanism is you get a Crossroads deck that gives you story points that you can play throughout the game. Every time one of the players takes a turn, someone else draws a Crossroads card, and if the conditions on the card are met, they read through the story, and it gives the players, a choice, or something just happens without their choice. Seeing the morale go down and seeing the head count go up and realizing, oh, we're gonna have to feed more food, we're gonna have to get more food to feed these people, realizing that, you know, you have a choice. If I go to this particular location, I'm gonna have to roll for exposure, but if I stay there, it's gonna get overrun by zombies and I'm gonna get bitten and die. Or I can go someplace else and after that and risk rolling for exposure again. There's a lot of options. But just like in real life, if you were faced with the decision of having to keep humanity alive during a zombie apocalypse, what would you do? Yeah, exactly. And that's what this game does a really great job of emulating. The tension of that, the horror of that. It's a fantastic game. I highly recommend anybody, if you've never played it before, get a group of 4 or 5 people together, play Dead of Winter. My number 3.
Number 2.
All right, at number 2, this is a game that made me feel a lot of things. I'm gonna play it again at some point. I don't know when, but I really want to play it through the way it's supposed to be played through. The first time I played it through, it was not your typical game playthrough. I'm really looking forward to playing Pandemic Legacy Season 1 again. This is my number 2 from Z-Man Games. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is a fantastic legacy game that takes the base game of Pandemic and creates a big long story out of it. So you can play anywhere from 12 to 24 games in this game. Once you're done, it's done because of how the game changes and how the game progresses throughout the play. It is a fantastic legacy game. Matt Leacock and Rob Daviau did a phenomenal job in designing this particular game and got all the awards the year it came out. It was just, everybody's like, Pandemic Legacy, Pandemic Legacy, Pandemic Legacy. It shot up to the top of the Board Game Geek charts and hit number 1 within a matter of just a couple months. It was very, very much deserved. It's since been knocked off its perch, but it's still in the top 10. There's a reason that game is still in the top 10. There's a reason it made it to number 1 in the first place. It's a fantastic game. It's a fantastic experience. You're not just playing it one time. You're playing an arc that lasts many, many, many game sessions. In my case, the time I played it as a charity event at Geekway to the West one year, and I played the entire campaign through in 24 hours. That was an endurance trial. Several people came in and rotated in and out, but I was in that game throughout the entire thing. Ended up playing 19 and a quarter hours, 17 games, lost everything altogether. This is one game that I would love to play again in its proper context because it gave me all the feels all the time. It was fun. It was nail biting. It was tense. It was frustrating. It was just grand. It just felt huge. So I'm very much looking forward to playing Season 2, but I'm also looking forward to playing Season 1 again. Pandemic Legacy Season 1, my number 2.
Number 1.
And the number 1 game on the list of games that make you feel. This is a game I found out about from Mike Perna, who is the head of Inroads Ministries. Inroads Ministries is a ministry that aspires to bring people together in fellowship through creative play, whether that's board games or whether that's role-playing games or anything in between. And I found out about this game from the podcast that he's on, Game Store Profits. He said it was really kind of emotional to play. And I found out after playing it the first time that, yeah, there's an emotion behind this and it's pretty visceral and it's pretty strong. The Grizzled is my number 1. This is a game that a lot of people seem to have forgotten about. One of the most notable things about this game is that the artwork is illustrated by Tignes, who was one of the artists who was killed in the Charlie Hebdo attacks in France. The art is whimsical, it's beautiful, it's magical. You are playing trench warfare soldiers in World War I. And the idea is that you are trying to make it through the night, you're trying to make it through the winter, you're trying to make it through all these seasons in the trench warfare. Every time you play something, you play a card into no man's land. Cards that you play represent threats, and they could be certain types of artillery, or there's certain types of sounds, they could be the seasons themselves, it could be weather conditions. But if you get 3 or more of the same threats into no man's land, it takes you longer, that much longer, to get through the bottom of the deck and win the game. So either you're going to win the game and you're going to see the end of the war and the end of the game in peace, or you're all going to lose the game and everyone dies. If you read about the trench warfare that happened in World War I, it's kind of disheartening and it's a little horrifying. And this game kind of brings a little bit of that melancholy in the gameplay to the table. It's not overwhelming, it's not in your face, but it's there. One of the cool things is that it gives you the ability to make speeches. If you make a speech, if you concede, you get the opportunity to make a speech to the rest of your troops. No matter what happens, we're going to be able to make it through. Don't lose hope. It's a really cool mechanic, and it's a really cool way to find out the heart in this game. There was a lot of passion put into making this game what it is. See, I'm getting kind of emotional just thinking about it right now, because every time I've played this with someone who hasn't played it before, or the first time I've played it, we've just come away with this feeling of, wow, we understand the heaviness of what they may have gone through. Maybe not viscerally, maybe not physically, but mentally, going through that type of warfare does something to you. And understanding that there are threats that are always coming and that there's only so much that you can do to stop them. Sometimes you have to take a step back. You have to retreat. And that's what this game makes you think about. It makes you realize sometimes you have to retreat when all you want to do is fight. You can't just go berserking into the wild, waving your sword and your axe and thinking nothing can harm you, because, yeah, you could die. You could die very, very easily. If this thing makes me feel anything, it's a sense of sober appreciation. In my notes, I put in my notes when I was putting this list together, what emotion each game made me feel, and next to this one, I just put all the feels. And it kind of does. It makes you feel victorious. It makes you feel defeated. It makes you feel frustrated. It makes you feel confident. And if nothing else, it gives you the feeling of camaraderie. The Grizzled, my number one. So talk to me in the comments. What is your number one game on this list? What's your number one game that makes you feel everything? And tell me what you think about the games that I've got on here. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I would love to hear your feedback. Put your comment below. And if you want to hear more content like this, you want to see more content like this, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I would love to make sure that you get as much content as possible. So I do have a Patreon that you can check out. It's at patreon.com/backburnergames. However, I will be ending that Patreon as of January 1st. So if you want to get in on the ground floor, if you want to get in on the final floor, and you want to get role-playing game content for as little as $3 a month, at least until the end of December, go to patreon.com/backburnergames and sign up today. My goal is to get at least one of my full systems and at least one of my scenarios on Kickstarter to publish and get out there in 2021. If you're the type of person that loves role-playing games, this may be right up your alley. And I would love to hear from you guys in the future for your ideas of a great top 10 list that you haven't seen before, or maybe you just want to hear my top 10 lists of a certain category. Let me know. This is Zach W. Lorton for the Backburner Podcast, signing off.
This podcast copyright Backburner Productions 2020. All rights reserved, Callahan. Oh yeah? What about the rights of that little girl? All games, titles, images, video, and music featured in this podcast are the property of the copyright owners and not the creator of this podcast. Get original tabletop RPG content every month by supporting Backburner Games on Patreon at patreon.com/backburnergames.
Want lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it, lovers, you want it now.